In the last video, we have seen what is the Echolean form of matrix. We have read about three properties, and the second property is optional. The first property is the zero row should be at the last of the matrix. So the last row of a matrix should be 0 rows. And the second property is the first non-zero entry should be equal to 1, but it is optional. The first non-zero element could be any value. And the third property is if a row contains a non-zero element, if a row has a zero value, then it should be less than the number of zeros in the next row. So the number of zeros in second row is 1 and in the third row is 2. So this is how the property should be followed. So number of zero in nth row should be less than number of zero in n plus 1th row. This is what the third property says. So three properties we have discussed in the previous video. You can check the video. And now I have taken one example and converted it into a Echolean form of matrix. I have applied elementary row operations and column operations, but in this question I have already applied row operation and I get the matrix in a Echolean form. So the first set of operation which I have applied are as follows. In R2, R3 and R4, in R2 I have done R2 minus 2 times of R1, in R3 I have done R3 minus 3 times of R1, and in R4 I have done R4 minus 6 R1. So I am explaining this, what I have done this, then you can understand using this how other operation can be performed. So we should understand R2 minus 2 R1. So taking R2, 2 4 3 2 minus 2 R1 करना है, तो 2 R1 में 2 का मल्टीप्लाई करा, so 2 4 6 0 and minus, so it is 2, it is minus 3, it is 0, it is 0. So you can see the result is 0 0 minus 3 2. This is how I have applied elementary row operations so that I can reduce it into smaller form. And then I have done this R3. In R3 I have applied R3 minus 3 R1. So I have taken R3 and subtracted it from 3 times of R1. Subtracted 3 times of R1 from R3. And in R4 I have subtracted 6 R1 from R4. Now I have get this. So in Echolean form of matrix, we know that the non-zero element in the n plus 1th row should be greater than nth row. So it is violating the property. So I interchange these rows. So R4, R2 and R3 are interchanged. So interchange R2 and R3, I get this. Now I have to somehow make this last row as all the elements as 0. So I have seen that the minus 4 and minus 4 can be subtracted. This minus 4 can be subtracted from these. That's why I have applied on R4 minus R2. R4 minus R2 किया हम लोगों ने, तो हमें मिला ये 0 0 minus 3 2. Now I have seen that the third row and fourth row are same, so I can directly subtract third row from the fourth row and I can make all the elements of the fourth row 0. So R4 minus R3, 0 minus 0 0, 0 minus 0 0, minus 3 minus 3 0, 2 minus 2 0. So I have a last row of the matrix as all the elements as 0, and the first property is satisfied here, and the second property is optional one, so we haven't have to check that. And the third property is all the 0 in the nth row should be less than the zeros on the n plus 1th row. So this is also satisfies, hence the matrix is in Echolean form.